The Emir of Qatar, Tamim bin Hamad, visited Istanbul and has ponied up $15 billion. We stand by the brothers in Turkey that have stood with the issues of the nation and with Qatar. As part of the important talks I held in Ankara on Friday with His Excellency President Erdogan, they've announced a $15 billion deposit package and investment projects in the country, which is a strong and solid and productive economy, he said. I take you back to my article over the weekend where I said President Erdogan is a Shakespearean figure, that he had even rescued the Emir of Qatar. And essentially this is a quid pro quo. I take you back to June 2017 when that rescue was effected, and I wrote a piece called Rolling Over Qatar. And I was saying then the Turkish president was apparently ready to send his military to Doha, preventing an imminent invasion by the Saudi Arabia of the UAE. So $15 billion is a small price. Tamim and Erdogan basically have, this is a $15 billion repayment in my perspective. Cold turkey was my article over the weekend. Harold and Macmillan, when asked what a prime minister feared most, replied, events, dear boy, events. I was also alluding to the strongman conundrum, and I'm saying that Erdogan and Xi Jinping are caught in that conundrum. If you are the strongman and you've placed yourself on a pedestal, then you own the problem. As such, that is going to remain the biggest challenge as to how to give himself some protection against owning that problem. Worried about Turkey's economic problems, China's could be worse. This is the New York Times. Turkey's problems are homegrown and the economic war against it a figment of Mr. Erdogan's conspiratorial imagination. But he does have a point about the impact of a surging dollar, which has a long history of inflicting damage on developing nations. In the wake of the global crisis of 2008, however, Beijing tried to keep its economy humming by ordering state banks to pump out new loans, more than half the increase in global debt over the past decade was issued as domestic loans inside China. There is now much more money circulating in China than in the United States, much of it in the hands of Chinese who are constantly on the watch for higher returns. As this crisis unfolds, attention is likely to shift from the relatively small global threat posed by Turkey to the much larger one posed by China, and from President Trump's tariff wars to currency wars. Though the Trump administration has accused China of weakening its currency to make its exports more competitive, over the past few days, China has shifted to trying to prevent the renminbi, already down 7% against the dollar over the past 2 months, from weakening further. The last thing Beijing wants is a sudden crisis of confidence. The fate of the world economy depends on how China renegotiates this dilemma. Its $14 trillion economy is more than 15 times larger than Turkey's, representing about 16% of the global economy. It is pivotal. For the rest of the world, the collapse of the lira may prove to be a passing event, and China is likely to decide which way this crisis goes. So, as I said, Erdogan, strongman conundrum, Xi Jinping in the same boat. Trump, I said over the weekend, seems to be relishing his financial warfare strategies. He has Khamenei on the run. Maduro in Venezuela is being attacked by a remote-controlled drone. Xi, I said then, looks ever so fragile. And let me remind you that it was only at the end of August last year I wrote a piece called China Rising. Xi looked seemingly unstoppable at that point in time. And then you come to today, Donald Trump is challenging him to an existential chicky run. And it's hubristic, it's Shakespearean, you've got this rough and tumble Trump guy shaking him up. It's quite extraordinary. Tariff wars, who blinks first? And I was asking who would, and it increasingly looks like China. Well, Trump has now turned his attention to Xi Jinping and thrown him the keys, challenging him to a cheeky run. However, some positive news, which has lifted some asset prices after a dramatic sell-off yesterday and over the last few sessions. The Chinese is sending a delegation led by the Vice Commerce Minister Wang Xuwen, who will meet with an American group led by David Malpass, Under Secretary of the US Treasury for International Affairs. That's why a little bit of optimism has crept into the markets. But as I said at the end of July, from a trading perspective, the fire starter, the chicky run specialist Donald Trump, is actually beginning to shake Xi.